Hey guys, in this week's episode, we're going to review An American Pickle, but before that, we're going to talk about Hamilton, Spider-Man 2, and the new Criterion Felini Box Set. Join us!
Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is a man who is very disappointed that An American Pickle was not the adaptation of the Rick and Morty Pickle Rick episode. Mike, how you doing today?
Pretty good. I just kept waiting for a pickle to become prominent in the storyline, but
yeah, like a talking
I've got some thoughts on it. You'll hear them soon.
Also with me is a man who bathes in pickle juice every night because it keeps his skin fresh and clean. How you doing today, Justin?
Extra fresh, extra clean. I just got out of a pickle bath, and I smell great. That's my opinion. I don't know how other people feel.
It's euphoric.
Yeah.
Well, they can't argue with how it does wonders for your skin, apparently, so.
Yeah. We'll put a photo on our Twitter account of my skin so people can see it.
Yeah, start getting more followers, too.
Most likely.
Okay, if this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about film and TV news, or the movies and TV that we've been watching, and then we'll move into our feature review. This week, it's going to be discussing An American Pickle.
And one of the things we want to let you guys know that we like to do here on the Casual Cinecast is we talk about the Criterion Collection. Every other week, one of us picks a film from said collection, and then we put it out onto the interwebs for you guys to vote on, for us to talk about and review on the next Criterion episode. So we have put it out on the interwebs, and we have kind of a couple more hours left on the Twitter poll, but Mike, tell us where we're at with the Twitter poll so far.
I don't have it up. One moment, please. All right, so right now, in first place, with 41% is My Dinner with Andre.
Boo.
Yay.
All right. With 38%, Bamboozled.
Yay.
That's second place.
Yep.
Very close.
That's second place, yes. And then third place, with 21%, is Ride with the Devil, which was my pick. So, not looking good for me.
No, I think you're going to lose, if I'm honest.
Yeah, me too. That's okay, because I get to rewatch My Dinner with Andre, apparently.
Me too.
Yeah.
I may go get the Blu-ray so I can watch it on Blu-ray and not watch my DVD copy again when I know there's a Blu-ray out there.
Yeah, I'm just going to watch the Community episode instead and then remember the first time I watched it. And that's how I'll review it.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Smart.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
It's a new take.
Cool. Well, so as we just went over, we do a poll to choose our Criterion films that we cover each week. If you want to vote in that poll, follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can also send us messages on any of those social media accounts if you have any thoughts on the reviews that we do, any feedback, any opinions or things we forgot to talk about that you think we should touch on. If you want to send us any questions, you can send those to any of those social media accounts. You can also send any of that to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, let people know that we're a good show that's worth listening to, and we will be forever grateful.
Please and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we are done with the intro, right? Is it time to go ahead and just move on into News on the March?
Absolutely.
Do it.
All right.
News on the March!
All right, Chris. You are recording in the right microphone this week, aren't you?
I think so, guys. Does this sound
I want
good?
to shame you on the podcast.
Everything's fine, right?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Okay, well, anyway, why don't you go first, Chris, now that we're in the News on the March?
Yeah, absolutely. A while back, it was big to do at the time when it was released onto the Disney Channel because it was supposed to come out late last year or late next year, and they pushed it up because of all this craziness that's going on in the world. But that was Hamilton. I watched Hamilton, and I have some thoughts. So I figured I'd let you guys know. That's why we started a podcast, after all. So I don't know that Hamilton could have ever really lived up to like the 5 years of hype that came before it. You know,
Yeah, I've been hearing about this play for so freaking long.
I have a lot of theater friends, and they would listen to this on repeat and talk to me about it all the time. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy the movie, but like people talked to me a lot about it and built it up. So when I did watch it, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I don't know that it necessarily lived up to the hype that was surrounding it. It is really interesting the way they filmed it, because they filmed it over the course of several nights and then with audiences, and then they did some close-ups and stuff, and that was like without the audience. They like had several nights where they did it without the audience. So I find that very interesting. And out of like the filmed plays that I've seen, I think this is probably up there. You know, like oftentimes filmed plays don't turn out that great. You know, you're not necessarily watching them. I mean, they're a play for a reason, right? And you're watching them on TV for a reason. It's these two mediums don't necessarily fit together, and you expect that when you watch this. But I think this takes full advantage of being filmed and kind of converting it into an enjoyable experience watching it, as opposed to, you know, a stationary camera or 3 stationary cameras filming from different angles in the audience. I found that really good and fun. I do like the music, and I do think that there's some things to be said about like casting choices and the way like certain characters are like double cast and things like that. But that'd be getting too spoilery into it. Mike, I think you've watched this as well, correct?
I have, and just small correction. It's on Disney Plus, not the Disney Channel.
Oh, yeah, I guess that is a little bit different. Yeah,
yeah, we have to be wary of that now because the Disney Channel is a whole different thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I've seen it too, and I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's filmed incredibly well. It's a lot of fun. The songs, for the most part, are really catchy. I still am humming songs. You know, almost 2 months later.
Yeah, the King George song in particular was stuck in my head for days.
Yeah, I got the one, like the room where it happened. That's the one that I can't get out of my head. Or the room where it happens. Anyway, but yeah, it's fun. It's something that I think, even if it's not something that appeals to you, it's a phenomenon. It's like a musical play that is so popular that everyone knows about it, even if you haven't seen it, right? So how often does that happen? I think like Cats in the 90s or something like that was like the last time I remember hearing about a new musical or something. It's just not often I hear about musicals, or the everyman will hear about them unless you're interested in them. So the fact that Hamilton is this prominent and it's readily available on something that like is so cheap and everyone has, there's no reason not to watch it and be part of the conversation. And you can't help but kind of get a little optimistic watching it. But then also you realize that this is like a hangover from like Obama's America, right? And everything is much worse now.
Yeah, I have seen that take online and stuff, and like, yeah, it's true. Everything is much worse, and the optimism that we had, and there are some people are calling it out because George Washington had slaves and stuff like that, and maybe it should have been more aware of that. But taking it for what it is really enjoyable. Yeah.
I'll tell you what this made me want to do, though, and actually, I need to finish it. But after we watched Hamilton, my girlfriend and I actually watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of John Adams on HBO.
Yeah.
Which is super good. And I need to finish it. Because
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, Paul Giamatti and Laura Linney.
Oh, yeah. It's been so long.
Yeah, and then also Tom Wilkinson and a bunch of other really good actors. So if you guys or anyone listening has watched Hamilton and wants that itch scratched a little bit more, watch John Adams, because I think John Adams really like brings to life historical figures in a way that makes them feel flesh and blood and not like the Cliff Notes in a history book. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I think in fact, I encourage you while you're watching John Adams to, in that way you incorporate the Hamilton stuff. You can take song breaks while you're watching John Adams. Make up your own songs or even just sing the Hamilton songs. And then that way, watching John Adams is a lot more like watching Hamilton, right? There you go. Blend the two. Yeah.
So I have not watched this yet. I'm not totally sure if I will, but Mike makes a good point that if, it's a phenomenon, you might as well see what it's all about.
Yeah. You don't want to be the one guy who's like, no, I don't care about this thing that everyone loves. That's not cool to do.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. It's not cool.
Speaking from experience here.
Yeah, it's a lonely road to walk.
Yeah. Well, I did want to ask, Chris, you mentioned that, this film has been hyped up for so long. Is there anything that you've seen, like either TV show, movie, whatever, that like was hyped up for a long time and you didn't watch it and then you finally watched it and was like, yeah, I get it. This is amazing.
Yeah, actually, Breaking Bad.
Good call. Same.
I had watched like the first 2 episodes of Breaking Bad and just like was not into it. And then, like years and years of people like Breaking Bad's great. It's amazing. And I was like, I watched the first 2 episodes. I know what it is, and then I finally went and back and watched it. And then got past those first 2 episodes and kept going, and it's remarkable. I love it, So yeah, that was one of those moments where it's like, why haven't I been watching this the whole time?
Yeah, and I want to say another thing. Actually, you mentioned how well it's filmed, Hamilton. And I 1,000% agree. Like, if you think you understand what it is, you probably don't. Earlier this year, I watched a filmed play of Into the Woods because my girlfriend likes Into the Woods. And so we rented that on Amazon and we watched it. And it was just, far wide angles of people on a stage running around. Mm-hmm. And Hamilton gets so, like, up in there with you get close-ups, you get mediums, you get weaving in and out of the dances. Wonderfully filmed. Yeah. And I would actually really appreciate more stage adaptations of like Broadway musicals and whatnot filmed in this way, because it's much more engaging than watching like just your traditional 3 cameras aimed at a stage.
Yeah. I wonder if because watching Hamilton on Disney Plus is certainly not the same experience you would get going to the theater, right? So I wonder if with those kind of more boringly filmed play adaptions, I wonder if that's trying to capture what it's like to see it in the theater. But ultimately,
I don't think they should try to do that, though.
It's not the same medium, so right. You should do the close-ups, and even though it may be a different experience, it's probably the best you can get watching it on TV.
Right, yeah. If you're going to watch it on a screen at home,
yeah,
it's the best way to do it. You don't want to try to recapture being live in a theater, because that just means you have bad audio and bad visuals.
Yeah.
And you don't have the energy of the performance in the room
to carry it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a similar experience in that recently I've watched 2 bands that I like do like live stream concerts. And it's kind of the same thing as like one of them only had like 2 camera angles. And even though I like that band much better than the other one that I watched, the other one had like, I don't know, like 10 different camera angles, including one like running around like on like a, handheld like Steadicam thing in between all the members, like on, essentially on stage with them. And that one was significantly more interesting because it does need that energy, because it's just not the same like sitting there watching it like you would a concert where you just have like your one camera that are your eyeballs.
Right. Yeah. You need some kind of like kinetic energy with like the camera itself and the editing.
Yeah. So
and I think Hamilton's got that in spades.
Yeah. Agreed.
Nice.
So Justin, have we convinced you to watch it? On the spot.
I'm about a 50%.
Break it up into 2 nights. You could do that. You could watch like the first part, because there's an intermission. So you break it up over 2 nights. And
how long is it?
Like 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
A little under.
Yeah,
I remember I was quite shocked at that. But then it makes sense, because, if you're going for like to pay for a night in the theater, you don't want to pay for like a short night.
Especially at Hamilton ticket prices.
Yeah, you don't want a breezy 90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I thought I was in for. And then I saw the runtime and I was like, oh, here we go.
Cool.
All right. So anything else on Hamilton?
No.
Okay. So real quick, I will be brief on this. I just want to say I watched a movie that I have not seen since I was in high school. And that is a movie from 2004 directed by Sam Raimi. And that is Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire and Alfred Molina being awesome. And I just got to say, man, this movie holds up. This movie is so much better than most Marvel movies that come out now. It's just got so much more heart and
style
and passion behind it that I actually watched. I was on Reddit the other day, and this is what made me want to rewatch Spider-Man 2. And there was like a scene that was just out of context from the rest of the movie. And it's the scene where Doc Ock is like in the hospital and he's like unconscious and his arms have just started taking over his body, you know? And the doctors are trying to like remove the arms from his body, but like the arms come to life and they start like killing everyone in the room, like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you forget that Sam Raimi like was a horror director. And so for like a good 2 minutes out of this comic book movie that's pretty lighthearted, all of a sudden you get this like exquisitely filmed horror sequence of these doctors fighting for their lives, being thrown through windows and trying to cut it with a bone saw, you know, and all this stuff. And it's just, that little section alone has so much more style than almost anything in the MCU. And that's just a little 2-minute section of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. And then, I don't want to get too much into the movie, but like the climax of the movie with like the train sequence and the crowd and Spider-Man is just so moving, and like it's so wholesome and like earnest in the way that it portrays like the heroes, you know, and it's so of a time and a place where like that just doesn't exist anymore in superhero movies, I don't think, because they're all a little too meta and little cynical now and a little too connected, you know. But Spider-Man 2 is just this little self-contained gem that I think holds up and feels a little quaint and feels a little old maybe, but the heart and soul is still there, and I think it's still one of the better superhero movies that exist. Yeah, so that's my little rant on Spider-Man 2. When's the last time you guys watched this movie?
For me, it was in theaters.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you were never a fan of it.
No, I walked out of that not liking it very much, and so I haven't revisited it. But then I saw Spider-Man 3 in theaters too, which was also the last time I saw that movie. And
yeah, same.
It slightly made me think, well, was 2 this bad? and since then, I guess not being too crazy about any of the other Spider-Man adaptations, I look back at 2 and think maybe I should revisit this, because I think that what I do remember about it is that it had a lot more of like a cheesy sort of comic book feel that the newer versions of Spider-Man try to be a little bit more real, a little bit more grounded.
Yeah. They try to be a little more consistently one tone, like the MCU tone, which is just funny, but nothing too much. But like Spider-Man 2, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, like I said, it has like a section where it's a horror movie. It has like a actual romance and like romantic scenes where part of it is like the formula of a romantic comedy in a lot of ways. That like that's something that the MCU has never really paid any kind of attention to, really. Like their love stories are what, like Tony Stark and Pepper Potts? Like that's not really... You know what I mean? So, like, yeah. I don't know. It's just, like, there's this earnestness and this, like, quaintness to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 2 that I think is charming.
Yeah. And I will say that when I watched it in theaters, it was long before I was ever into film in any deep sense, I guess. Like, you know, the movies I would have watched would have been just every mainstream movie in the world. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have dove any deeper into film than that, right? So yeah. I think there's some level of appreciation I could have never had for it, even if it is was like the best movie ever made, you know? I don't think I would have appreciated it at the time.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not the best movie ever made, but I think it's hands down the best Spider-Man movie. Well, that's not true. Well, Spider-Verse is really good.
Yeah.
I forgot about that guy for a second.
Yeah, but Chris, when was the last time you saw this?
I'm pretty sure I've seen it outside of the theater, like on DVD or something. I don't remember when the last time was that I watched it. I do like it quite a bit. I haven't seen it I haven't seen it in a time where I can reflect upon what it was like to live in that time. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So not recently. However, like as a diversion, I did want to ask you, because this is all relevant. Sam Raimi is supposed to be, and who knows what's going to happen after, you know, all the pandemic stuff, but supposed to be directing Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange. What is the Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah. So there is a potential style. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sam Raimi hasn't really done that many great things. I forget what the last good thing he did was.
I liked Drag Me to Hell. That's the last thing I remember.
Yeah, I think that is the last one.
That movie is fantastic.
Yeah, movie's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully this can be a return to style for Sam Raimi, and we can get some style in an MCU movie, which I like MCU movies. They scratch an itch, but they don't necessarily like... They're not fulfilling, you know, like in that like full mill kind of way.
Yeah, like I feel like I was fulfilled with Iron Man, like the first one, right? Mm-hmm. And then the rest of them have all just been like waiting for Endgame, and then I wasn't satisfied with any of them until Endgame happened. And now I feel done with it, to be honest with you. Like, I'll keep watching the MCU, but like, I don't have that like want like I did for like the next one, like that I had for a few years. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten closure from it.
They got to make you itch again.
It has
Yeah,
been,
exactly. They got to start making me itch again. So we'll see.
Yeah, it has been a year since we've had a Marvel movie, so that's like the longest we've gone probably since Iron Man. You know, like
Which
without
is kind of nice.
a Marvel movie. Yeah, it's not.
You know what's weird to think about?
Well, I would take any movie at this point, like in the theater. So
You know what's weird to think about? And like we don't know where things are going, right? But it's possible that The Rise of Skywalker is the last $1 billion movie.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Don't edit
I-
out that silence because
I don't think I don't think that'll be the case if I'm, being honest or optimistic.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I'm saying it's possible if
It
the
is
theaters
possible.
really do go under.
I don't. Well, that's a whole nother conversation that would be fun to have, but we'll have to
Yeah.
save that for another time.
Yeah. We're getting long on the news on the march. We still have to talk about that American Pickle thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I'm done with Spider-Man 2. We can. Justin, what do you got this week?
Well, the only thing I have, because I haven't been watching anything as last week, we moved in the new house, so it's just been a bunch of house stuff and work stuff for the last week. So I haven't watched anything new, but I did get very excited today because the Criterion Collection put up on their site their Felini box set, which we know has been coming since the New Year's Eve drawing that they did that hinted at, I think it hinted at the Bruce Lee box set, the Fellini,
Wong Kar-wai,
and then maybe Agnes Varda box sets. And we've gotten 3 of those now. So we knew the Fellini was coming, but it's official today. I believe it comes out in November. Is that correct?
November
24th. Yeah. But I'm very excited about this one. I was excited about the Bergman one. I'm excited about the Varda one because I can dig into more Varda because I've only seen one of her movies.
Same.
No, I've seen 2 actually. Now that I think about it.
Well, then you beat me.
Cleo from 5 to 7, and is it La Pointe Court? Whatever. Anyways, I thought you would watch that one too because I
don't
remember
think so.
us talking about it, but I guess not. But anyways, the Fellini one is very exciting to me because he's one of my favorite directors, and I don't love all of his films, but the films I do love, I just think the world of, and find him to be just really fascinating as a director, just to like watch what he does, and like the vibe and tone of his movies is unlike any other, in my opinion. And I have most of the movies that I love already, but I'm very tempted by this box set. Have you guys looked at it? What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say I agree with you. I don't love every Fellini film, but once I do, I feel a very like intense loyalty to them, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
What I will say, though, is a lot of his films have this quality to where they seem so meandering and slow. And while I'm watching it, I'm bored. But then it's over and something happens, like it ends in a certain way, and then I'm left with all the thoughts, and I'm like, wait, you know what? It was actually brilliant. And I actually do like it, but I wouldn't have told you that like an hour and a half into the movie, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking specifically of like La Dolce Vita or 8.5, you know?
Those are both pretty episodic.
Yeah, 8.5 is pretty crazy, and it's like set pieces and stuff at the beginning, so that one has a little bit more draw. But with La Dolce Vita, I remember I was like, I do not get it. I do not get it.
Yeah, for like 2 hours.
Yeah. And then it's over, and then the way it ends, you're like, oh, okay, hang on. That's great. And I will say that the thing that excites me the most about this box set is a new updated Knights of Cabiria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
My favorite Fellini film, and has been out of print on a Criterion DVD for many years. And so, oh man, I would prefer, honestly, to get all of these movies individually and not in the form of a big box set, because I don't like the size of the box. Like, I can't put it on the shelf with my other Blu-rays because it's a big, stupid box that I can't, like, I have to do something special with, you know?
Yeah, that's been a complaint about all the
Put it on the
box
top
sets.
of your shelf.
But I don't want to do that. That's like, it looks tacky up there. I don't know. So I would prefer to get them all individually, but if I'm not able to get Knights of Cabiria individually one day, then this is a no-brainer buy for me.
I think give it some time because there have been other box sets. I think the Bergman one has had some individual Bergman films release
Yeah,
after the box set.
Yeah.
The what was it? The America Lost and Found box set with 5 easy pieces and Head.
And Easy Rider.
Easy Rider, yeah. Those were all released individually after I bought the box set. So
Yeah. The big ones were, I think, like Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, maybe
Yeah.
The Last Picture Show, but I
doubt
think
Head
so.
was, though.
Yeah, Head
maybe.
wasn't.
Yeah. But anyways, no, that's really exciting because, man, do I love Knights of Cabiria. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, the box set. Well, I'm going to start. There are like a few movies that we have watched while doing this podcast that like I'm always thinking about. Tokyo Story being one of them.
Yeah.
Omnicord is the other one. And that's one of the ones we did at the very, very beginning. But like every time we talk about movies, or it just always comes up for me. Like I'm like, oh, there's lots of, they're able to create a city like Omnicord did, you know, like it's just kind of my touchstone for movies, you know, if that makes sense. So yeah, I love Fellini, and the box set makes me super excited. They're on top of all the movies that are coming out. I was looking at the special features, and there's like a television film, Fellini, a director's notebook that's coming out, and then one of his short films called Toby Dammit. So there's like, it's not just as some of these films. There's like a lot of extra special features that make it really interesting and should be fun to dive into to get to know Fellini better in that way. So lots of interesting stuff in this that make me excited.
Yeah, I think what I like about this one is that I do own a lot of the movies that I really love, like the big ones like Knights of Cabiria and Omnicord, 8.5, La Dolce Vita, etc. But there's also all of these little ones like Fellini Satyricon and Roma that I remember enjoying, and then there's a couple that I haven't seen that I wouldn't necessarily go buy. You know, like I don't necessarily think they're worth it, but now I can kind of buy this box set and have them all and not feel like I'm throwing money at any one individual movie more than another. You know what I mean? Like it's an excuse to get those and have them on Blu-ray and nice and neat.
Yeah. Like you'd spend $100 if like, say you get this box set at the 50% off sale, if you're lucky enough, but like, you know, 8.5, La Dolce Vita, Omnicord, I'd spend $100 on those 3 movies for sure.
Get a box set, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
the rest is bonus.
Those are
at
just
that point.
extras.
Yeah, and the one movie, much like you said, Mike, Knights of Cabiria, you're excited to have the upgrade from DVD to the Blu-ray, which I am about that one too, because that's one of my favorites as well. But I also really love Juliet of the Spirits.
Yes.
It's a super colorful Fellini film, and
movie's bonkers too.
Yeah, it's wild, and I have only seen it and Knights of Cabiria on the DVD. So like to have like an HD Blu-ray of both of those films, I am so excited. I think this is going to be a buy. I'm going to wait till it sell because I think it's priced at $200.
Yeah, it's $200.
That's a lot of money, but $100. I mean, that feels like a bargain for all of these.
Yeah, it really does. And I'm not one to likes to drop $100 on anything. You know, so, but
sure.
but when you say it like that, like 8.5, La Dolce Vita, Knights of Cabiria, like whew, that's already $70 worth of a purchase right there. You know, so
right,
yeah.
And I guess we should kind of correct. I said $200. That's what it is on Criterion right now, but that's discounted $50. So typically, the suggested retail price is $250. Or $249.99. So like half off of that would be like $125, which I still don't think is bad.
No, not for the. I haven't actually counted how many movies there are, and I'm not going to do it on here because that doesn't necessarily make for an interesting podcast. But it's a lot. It's most of his big ones, and it's pretty much excluding some of the later years of movies he made that not as worthwhile. I don't think things like Ginger and Fred aren't in here.
Yeah.
Our next Criterion poll should be Fellini movies.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay,
we should do another Fellini. It's been, like you said, it's been almost 3 years since we started the podcast, and
I've never gotten to do one.
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't even on the show at that point.
Oh, really?
That's true.
Nope.
I remember a whole conversation with Omnicord with you. It happened in my head, apparently.
Yeah, I remember it too because I listened to the episode by myself.
And you just you paused it every time you had to say something?
All right, anyways. Okay, yeah. Fellini box set. I am looking forward to it, but I do wish it were just the regular height of a Blu-ray.
I'm with you on that. I feel that way about all the box sets. That's why I haven't bought any of them that aren't that height. Like I have the Tati one and the America BBS and some other ones, the Jacques Demy one, right? Because they all fit on my Blu-ray shelf and they're the same height and just, they're just a bigger, wider box. Not this like weird, like vinyl sized giant thing.
Right.
Suitcase.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, cool. So are we ready to move into our review of An American Pickle?
Yes.
Pickle me.
What does that mean?
Oh, I was hoping you knew.
Gross.
Amoe, als ik arbeidsjaar in Schuur een weerreich.
Wie reich?
Zo reich, als ik zo opzellen mijn eigen met zijn.
In old country of Slupska, I am ditch digger. As far as jobs in Slups go, it's pretty good. We are the Greenbounds, and we have American dream. I find good job in pickle factory. Sarah, I make this vow. 100 years, our family will prosper. And then one day, everything changed.
It's been 100 years. The pickle brine preserved him perfectly.
You're too old to lose that.
The world has changed. Everyone I know is gone.
You were able to track down a great grandson.
Greenbaum! Greenbaum! This is nuts.
All right, so as always with our newer films, we are going to be doing a spoiler-free section up front, so we will all give our general opinions without spoiling any major things from the film. So if you haven't seen An American Pickle, you can continue to listen through the spoiler-free section. We will give you a warning and a spoiler alert and a little bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast before we move into spoilers, and then you can go watch An American Pickle and then come back and finish the rest of the episode and get all those juicy, kind of sour spoilers.
I like you're trying to keep up with the pickle theme.
Yes, that is what I was doing. It's subtle, I know.
All right, An American Pickle was directed by Brandon Trost. It stars Seth Rogen and Seth Rogen. The IMDb synopsis says, an immigrant worker at a pickle factory is accidentally preserved for 100 years and wakes up in modern-day Brooklyn.
Nice. I laughed so hard because before you got on, I was like, I'm going to put Seth Rogen twice and see what Mike does on the show notes.
It did not disappoint.
No.
Good. I'm glad. Okay, so who would like to kick us off on their initial thoughts of An American Pickle?
I can, I guess. No one's jumping at it, so I will volunteer myself.
Step on up.
Sure. So I had no idea what this movie was about. Really, like you said, hey, let's do An American Pickle on this episode. I was like, great, what am I in for? Right? And so I was very surprised to see Seth Rogen when I started this up, just because that just didn't occur to me that it was going to be some sort of like comedy film, or I don't know. I think it's just because we were coming off doing an episode on First Cow, and this one is like An American Pickle. So it's kind of like, I don't know.
You thought you were in for like an A24?
Yeah, just something
like indie.
Yeah, just something indie. I don't know. I didn't know. So I saw Seth Rogen pop up, and I was like, well, okay, this is going to be funny and like a comedy, and I kind of figured out when I figured out what the movie was going to be, I was like, okay, well, this sounds like pretty hilarious, and I enjoyed a lot of the comedy very early on in the film, and once the film gets into like what it's about, which is, the old version of Seth Rogen. Is it a spoiler to talk about how there's two versions?
So. I mean, if you've seen the trailer.
Okay, if it's in the trailer, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is, the old version of Seth Rogen waking up and being in this new world. Once that gets rolling, I felt that a lot of the comedy sort of like went by the wayside for this sort of satire on modern day America and the world of social media and all kinds of like politic stuff going on, like and
cancel culture.
Yeah, it was kind of turned into this big satire that wasn't really as funny as I thought the film was going to be once it started out. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just that I found myself a little confused at times of what this film wanted to be, whether or not it wanted to be that comedy that it was for the first 20 to 25 minutes, or whether it wanted to be a little bit more moving and touching, because there are some things in this film that almost played as heartwarming to me. Like I thought, like, man, if this film was consistent in its tone, I might get a little choked up at some of these parts.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's probably my biggest complaint about the movie, and the thing that keeps me from like really loving it. But that said, I did enjoy it. It's pretty short. It's like an hour and a half, maybe a little under. And it's a fun ride. It's fun to see where they go. I do think that some of the little segments feel underexplored. Like I would like to like spend more time in each little chapter of this story, because I feel like we move through things really quickly at an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's short. It's breezy. I think Seth Rogen is really good in it. I think he's funny and pulls off some of the dramatic moments too, pretty well. And yeah, I liked it. I had a good time with it. It reminded me a little bit of what's the name of the Ricky Gervais movie, Invention of Lying.
Oh yeah, I never saw that, but I always wanted to.
Yeah, where it's kind of this like far-fetched sort of like high concept comedy. Like in that movie, nobody in the world lies, and he's the first person who ever tells a lie. And this one,
Yeah.
a guy is preserved in pickle juice for 100 years. Like, so it kind of gave me that vibe, but I like this movie better than that one. I think it pulls off a little bit more of what it's trying to do in terms of the satire, and doesn't feel quite, well, it is a little heavy-handed, but in a satisfying way.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll leave it there. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I would watch it again if I was with someone who's like, I've never seen this and I really want to watch it. So, that says something.
Indeed.
So yeah, I will pass it off to whoever wants to go next.
I'll go. I want to echo pretty much everything you said. I think I like it a little bit better than you, but I do agree that it is tonally, I don't want to say inconsistent, but it is inconsistent, but it doesn't feel jarring. Inconsistent makes it sound like it's like more of a complaint, but I actually kind of dig the seriousness and the satire and the heartwarming stuff that happens kind of in Act 2. I feel like it's earned, and I wasn't bored from the lack of laughter.
Yeah.
And every time we went to like a new direction, I was like, man, this movie is just going all over the place in a very short runtime. So I agree with you. Like a lot of sections I wish could have been explored a little more. But that said, that's pretty minor. I really enjoyed it. I think Seth Rogen is probably the best he's ever been here. I remember halfway through the movie, I had to remind myself that I was watching Seth Rogen in two different roles.
Yeah.
Because he just disappeared into the goofy, what's his name? I don't remember his name in the movie.
Herschel,
Greenbaum. That's it, yes. He disappears into Herschel. I forgot I was watching Seth Rogen like bounce off each other back and forth. So once I realized that I wasn't paying attention to that, and then all of a sudden I was just nothing but impressed with his performance the rest of the movie. It's not flashy. He's a very subtle clown, I guess. And he has a lot of heart behind it, I think. And I don't know, I think he's learned how to use that, I think, in a really interesting way. I think he's kind of found his place, the sad, funny guy. Yeah, overall, it's not great. It's like, I didn't cry. I didn't laugh out loud very much, but I enjoyed it the whole time. And I did chuckle a few times. And I did laugh at the beginning whenever she wanted to go to like her favorite bog.
Yeah, a lot of the opening of this film really made me laugh. It's very, it's kind of this weird combination of like Borat and Buster Keaton.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. But yeah, overall, I'll keep it short there. But I liked it. I think it's worth your time. It's short. Seth Rogen's pretty good in it, but it's not going to be the most funny movie. But if you're interested in a satire about American culture and family and generational time and death and time and all that stuff, I think it's kind of a sad little satire comedy that...
Legacy, yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, like, I think this movie's very much about death and the temporariness of everything and family, generations. I don't know. Like, there's some stuff to explore there that I wish the movie would have gone into a little bit more, but I'll leave it there. But the movie's got heart. And so, yeah.
It does.
Chris, what do you think?
You guys are both completely wrong. No. Because I don't want to agree. It's not entertaining if we all agree. It was interesting. About halfway through the movie, I was thinking, or maybe it was a little bit longer into the movie, but we had that conversation about Judd Apatow going on for too long. And in this one, I definitely got the feeling that I wanted for it to go on just a little bit longer. It goes at a brisk pace, like things move. And much like Justin, I had seen the trailer, so I knew, like about him waking up 100 years later. And I knew that, Seth Rogen was in it. But I was surprised by this movie and a lot of the turns it takes. And, probably like 2 or 3 times I was surprised at what it was trying to get at, because that's not what I was expecting from this movie.
Yeah, I was like, this movie's doing so much in such a short time.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like if they had explored some more of that stuff and gone more in depth into it, it would have been great. So it's funny that Justin said Buster Keaton, because I thought there was big chunks of this movie that felt like a silent film or like a musical, because the music's big and kind of carries the film in these not dialogue heavy, like there's mainly just exposition kind of going on in the background, but you see the two Seth Rogens kind of acting opposite of each other or watching what each other are doing, that I enjoyed. I thought that was really fun, and I like this movie, but the reason it's not better or like great is because I feel like it doesn't explore those ideas to the full extent. And I don't want, like a 3-hour long movie on this either, but like just like maybe 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes, like, and go into some of these characters or like some of what it's trying to say about these things, because it feels very cursory. Or even like Mike was saying, he didn't cry. And I think both of you guys said that. And there's these touching moments in there, but I just felt like I hadn't spent enough time. Like the opening sequence in the movie where it's telling about where Herschel came from, I felt like, oh, this could have been like Up. I could be like bawling my eyes out right now. Like if they had just like spent a little bit more time with one of the characters or something like that, it could have been really touching, but it wasn't quite there. It was touching, but not moving, or I don't know how to explain that. But anyways, yes, I'm very much in the same boat as you guys are. A very enjoyable movie. Like it moves at such an incredible pace that like, and that's kind of part of the fun of it in the jokes, because like even if a joke doesn't land for you, you're already on to the next joke, and that's kind of what works about this movie.
Yeah, and the jokes are tight. They're not like a lot of Seth Rogen's comedies, a lot of the jokes are improv, and a lot of the directors don't know how to like end the improv joke, right?
Yeah,
so you'll get like riffing for a good 2 minutes sometimes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's the same director of like The Disaster Artist and This Is the End. So it's somebody that's worked with Seth Rogen.
Is it the same director?
Unless I clicked on the wrong button.
Yeah, it's the cinematographer from those movies, not the director. It's the director of photography. So you're half right.
Oh, he was. Interesting. Well, that's my bad.
I think this is
but
better
they have
than
worked
This Is the
together
End.
before, right?
Yeah.
On those movies.
Yeah, this is much better than This Is the End.
But yes, anyways, thanks for the correction, Justin. But
no problem.
Let's dive into it further and talk about specifics.
There you go. Those are all our thoughts on American Pickle. We're about to move into spoilers, but it sounds like we all recommend it, but all of us seem to want to like it more than we do.
Yeah, and
So-
we can get into specifically why momentarily.
See you there, maybe, if you stick around.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
Okay, so I do want to talk about why those sort of more emotional moments, especially the ones towards the end of the movie, I felt like didn't quite pay off. And I think that's part of what you were talking about, Chris, of like the some of the jokes, some of the bits and like things being a little cursory to the story, is because I feel like we don't spend enough time in certain things, like the whole, he becomes a Twitter icon for some people for like his, outlandish, unfiltered statements on Twitter, which is very like reminiscent of Trump, right? And people are like, oh, you can't, people aren't gonna like go for this guy who's like completely unfiltered or whatever.
Right. And then they talk about him running for office.
Yeah. And then they kind of just something happens. It was the other Seth Rogen, Ben, I believe is his name. He asks him a question about what is Christianity, I think. And then that segment kind of ends. And it's like that segment feels like a little like jab and it's kind of funny and there's a little satire to it, but like it doesn't dive in enough to explore that. But at the same time, then that segment is taking away from what you were talking about, Mike, is that like overall there's like a heavy theme of like family and legacy and death in this film that is really touching at times. And it's just like, I don't know, I'm stuck between wanting more of like those comedy sections, but at the same time, they're taking away from the stuff that really paid off for me later.
I think I would be, I see what you're saying, and you're not wrong there, but I wouldn't want to get rid of any of these sections either, because whenever they start to explore ideas, I find it interesting. I just wish that like some of these ideas, like, okay, him being a Twitter icon for being a bigot, what does that say about us, and etc. It's, you know, like, you need to like make a statement more with it instead of just an observation.
For a second, I thought we were going full being there, you know, like where he would just say random things and everybody would love him for it, you know, like
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it seems like what it's trying to do is it's just trying to make an observation, which is just like, oh yeah, if you're a bigot online, you're going to get a lot of attention, good and bad. And that seems to be the end of what they're saying for the most part. We flock to it. American media flocks to it. See, there's so much more they could have said, but it's just in and out of the movie so fast, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would like them to, those things to stay and get more of them. It's just when they don't feel like they pay off, then I'm kind of bummed by the end that we didn't get a little bit more stuff that built up to like, to some of the end scenes.
Yeah, it reminds me of whenever we reviewed Ad Astra. You were really caught up on like the idea that you found a lot of the tangential stuff way more interesting than the main plot.
Yeah,
and you wanted like the journey to where he was going in that movie to be explored more than the actual, you know, journey itself.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of what we're saying here, which is that like the ending destination is fine and all, but the journey along the way is painted with so much interesting stuff that it's too breezy to feel satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's too many detours, so like it's kind of choose one or the other. Like maybe spend more time with the family stuff and legacy.
But then you get bogged down in like, then you become like Spike Lee, right? Which is you have like a 3-hour movie that that meanders a lot.
Right, yeah. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but it feels like, or at least this is what I feel like Justin's saying is, you know, they're taking away from each other, like as opposed to focusing on one and making it better. I don't know. That's kind of
and it, you know, it takes its segment, like, you know, briefly I thought this movie is going to be like, oh, it's going to be this sort of blast from the past / Borat type comedy, you know, like fish out of water type thing, and then it's like, oh wait, this actually might be sort of like comment on capitalism, and then it kind of drops that too, and then it's like, oh no, then now we're in this like political, maybe running for office and like president game, and but now we're gonna drop that too, and
now back to family.
Now we're back, so it's a hell of a journey.
It's a wild ride.
It's entertaining to watch, no doubt. It's just thinking back on it, you know, it leaves me wanting a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely understand that.
So Seth Rogen's performance, I guess the thing that it took me a minute to get over, I think it was Mike that said that he kind of melts into this role as Herschel, and I totally agree. But that opening segment, I could not get like Borat out of my head.
Yeah,
for a while. I think it's a mix of like the style and like him kind of explaining his life and his job in his country. That was like this. Well, Kazakhstan's not a fictitious country, but it's a fictitious version of a country. But it took me a minute to get over that accent, but as the movie goes on, it really works.
Yeah, Seth Rogen is really good in this, like you guys have both said. But that balance of doing those two roles, I think what Mike said before was this is probably his best work, melting into that role. I'd like to see him try something that challenges him like this more often.
I know we talked to a friend of the show, Matt Ward, about this through some text messages, and he was actually saying he didn't really like Seth Rogen's performance as Ben, the more modern version, which I think it's fine. I think it's more of like the straight man.
It's more of what he normally does, but I think he normally does that well.
Yeah, I agree. And now I'm just gonna like say a thing that just made me laugh a couple times, but when he first gets in the car and he like crawls in, and Seth Rogen's like, "Yeah, go ahead and crawl in." I'm like, that's fine. I don't know. This makes me laugh.
I like that we didn't go down the path of like Ben being like, I don't want to take care of this guy. He's my great grandfather. I don't, he's weird. Like, I like that when we first meet Ben, Herschel's not like a burden to him. Yeah, he's pumped up, and it kind of makes sense later in the movie why he would feel that way. of discovering the family member. But, whenever they found out, it was like, oh, you have like a grandson or whatever, I thought, oh, are we going to do that sort of thing where he's going to like inconvenience people?
Yeah. It also, it skips the Encino Man's sequence, right? Like where like you show him TV, and there are some of those moments in here,
but it's all fluid in the story. Like, here's a car, get into a car for the first time.
Yeah,
like, it doesn't slow us down to go on a tangent of being like, what's the news?
Yeah, they don't do 5 minutes of this cell phone. Like every time something new, they just kind of gloss over it. They do that with a lot of...
I'm sorry, go on.
Well, they do that with a lot of stuff, just kind of glossing over it. We know the tropes, like, they're like, the science is exactly right, and this is it. And then it, like, is covered up by, like, a
joke
narration, and I don't think that's funny. Like, they're like, don't worry about that, let's just watch it and have fun.
Yeah, and I also like how, like, whenever he does introduce new things to Herschel, sometimes it's, like, in the form of, like, taking advantage of him. Like, he knows that Herschel doesn't know what Twitter is, so he just brings up that Herschel will suck at Twitter. And, like, that's the fish out of water element, right? It's not like, what's the internet? It's just like, I'll learn it and then I'll be better at it than you. And that's like the extent of like the burdening us with that.
Yeah.
No, man, I don't know why that just popped in my head, but whenever Herschel comes back to visit it, like find him, and he just kicks in his window. Yeah. For like no reason. He could have just, I guess he's on the run, but he could have just knocked on the window or something.
I think my favorite section of the movie is digging through the trash and actually setting up his like pickle business.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I do like watching people do things in movies.
I enjoyed just like, I kind of thought this movie might be right up my alley, like perfectly. In the end, it wasn't perfect, but like the opening sort of montage of him explaining that he's a ditch digger.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, everything just keeps breaking.
Yeah, I did really like that.
That's what really gave me that Buster Keaton vibe, because he was just kind of like straight faced about it. And it was in that, that square silent film format and look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the, like I know I mentioned earlier, but the romantic bog makes me laugh. Because it's just like an ugly, swampy pit.
I like when they revisit it.
Yeah. And it's all nuclear power plants. And then that touch, like at the beginning, there's a touch that when his wife touches him on the shoulder, and it's revisited later on in the film, and that was touching, and it was good. I don't think it ever reaches what we wanted it to, but I really like how it called back to that first part and connecting family together, and it's really touching.
Yeah, and we've talked about how this movie's a little unfocused, but if I had to pull one lesson away from this movie, I think it's that, in this terrible, cruel, awful world we live in, family is all you got, for better or worse, right? And you gotta take care of them, and you gotta be appreciative of them when you have them, because you won't forever, If I had to take anything away from the movie, I think it's that.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me. Is just like appreciate them while you have them, because both of them, lose important people in their family.
Right, and there's an inevitability in that. It's going to happen, but you got to treat them the right way while you got them. I think that's ultimately what I walk away from in An American Pickle.
Yeah.
Yep, and that people get way too much love on Twitter just for having like insane views and like extreme views.
Man, that's the problem with Twitter, is like there's no downvote button, so it's just designed to promote extreme ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is definitely a problem with Twitter.
The one other thing that I would like to touch on is one of the last scenes in the movie, I think it is, where the normal Seth Rogen, I guess, Ben. Modern Seth Rogen, I guess, is better than normal. But Ben. When he's in the other country and he's in I guess, is it a synagogue, or he's in some place, the church. And I don't know, he comes in. I was really touched and moved in that scene where he was like, they were like, oh, we need you to come like help us pray,
Yeah.
We spent a little bit of the film touching on how he's not particularly religious and hasn't prayed for his parents. And I don't know, that really got to me. And I liked the whole discovering what Boop Bop was and like his app and why like it meant so much for like that app to be successful.
Right. Yeah.
And I just think that's one of those things that it was just right there for me in terms of like, this is almost paying off in a way that makes me feel really good and like is getting me a little bit emotional, but I haven't spent the whole movie getting invested
Yeah, I feel like Ben as a character got a little shortchanged in the thing, and I think the key to that family dynamic would have been a little bit more Ben.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We see Ben reacting to Herschel a lot, but we don't really see Ben going through his own
issues,
misadventures.
Yeah. We see him jealous of Herschel's success and like at odds with him, and he does some like, not very good things that don't necessarily make me like him,
Sure. But I never disliked him either.
No, he's just doing things that I'm like, that seems kind of crappy. But
yeah,
what are you gonna do? I guess I just like some more. I think you're right. Some more Ben.
Yeah, I like the seltzer water machine.
Oh yeah, that was really happy.
Yeah,
like that was one of those moments that like that did move me a little bit. Just like he's like, you have seltzer water?
Yeah, and he's like, you want to push the button? And he's like, may I? Or he's like, it's a big deal usually, but your family.
I really like that section of the film too, because everything that Herschel wanted in life, that he found luxurious in his previous life, right? Ben had at the touch of a button. Like he had seltzer water, he had like all those luxuries he just had. And then we just find it like if we don't have those things, like something's wrong, Does that make sense? I mean, I don't have a seltzer making water machine, but
if you wanted one, you could have one really easily. And then you'd be feeling wrong if you didn't have one.
Yeah, if you want seltzer water, you could go buy some too. Like even if you don't go buy the machine or whatever, it's really readily available these days.
Yeah. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it was just I like that section where Ben, to a certain extent, I felt like this is where it was going at the time, but like Ben kind of takes for granted all the luxurious things that he has that Herschel had to work so hard for, Yeah,
it's interesting to think that 100 years later, one man's dream of like the good life is just everyday average American life, or any other country really, maybe or most other countries when it comes to like seltzer water. But
yeah,
I like that idea. I like that concept. It kind of made me think of like what 100 years from now do we think like, wow, that is like insane, and I can't imagine having that. But like
one of anti-cancer pills.
Yeah, that was
or
just
a vaccine for COVID.
Oh, too soon. But yeah, like vitamins that you take every morning. It's like, yeah, this just keeps cancer from happening. Like, oh wow,
this will guarantee your health until you stop taking them.
Yeah, yeah, or even just something. I don't know what's something
whatever,
crazy.
like self-driving flying cars.
Yeah,
space travel.
Yeah. Like Teslas or something. Like Teslas are going to be like real quaint.
Yeah,
they're going to be like a horse and buggy type thing compared to what there's going to be 100 years from now. I mean, it's probably going to be even crazier because of how like technology exponentially advances.
Yeah, if we don't kill ourselves before then, as a society, not like individuals.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well now I am done on an American Pickle.
Cool. So that's our review of an American Pickle.
Yep. And is there anything else that we have to go over for this episode before we're done?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. No.
Well, cool. Then I guess that does it.
Yeah, this is us being done.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And then, of course, as always, thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch. And fun fact, our intro and outro music are both the same song, so we really only created one song.
Yep, lazy. All right. Stay tuned to this feed. Our next episode will be a casually Criterion on, what was it again? My Dinner with Andre.
We don't know yet. Well, the poll's technically not done, but it's most likely My Dinner with Andre.
Yeah. But Ride with the Devil could make a comeback real soon.
You get the Ang Lee fans
Mike's
out.
going to go... Yeah, Mike's going to go
I got
create
some
a bunch
Twitter accounts to create. I got to go.
Accounts, yeah. All right. Wait, do we cover everything?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, we just got to end this thing.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. I'm about to go put myself in pickle brine so I can find out what happens in 100 years. We'll see you next time.
I'll miss you. Bye.
I'll miss you too.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Bye.
You'll have this podcast as like a remnant of Justin and I's lives without you.
For the next however many years, 20 years or whatever, you can go back and listen to relive our lives.
What movie should I catch up on? Let me go back. All right.
Take it easy, everyone.
it.